Welcome back. You're listening to Home Wizards. I'm Cindy Dole.
Hey, I'm Eric Stromer.
And I have to tell you a quick story about the Beach Boys. So we were just listening to that. So when I was working in Michigan, we got to do because I was a reporter at the time, got to do a thing where you are on stage with the Beach Boys. And that's part of the thing where you interview them and you do a little TV segment on them. And so I'm on the stage with, I think his name's Bruce, standing next to him. And the song was Barbara Ann. And so I'm singing with him and, on stage in Michigan. And a local radio station recorded it and took all the Beach Boys voices out except mine. Let's just say that I wasn't on cue.
That's Linda McCartney. That's what happened to Linda McCartney. Remember that? Yes. They did the same thing.
So I had good spirit.
No.
I was enthusiastic.
Yeah, you were.
But I didn't.
That's like my mom has the most amazing delivery and intention of any singer that I've ever heard in my life. But
not
it's
on
just
key.
awful.
Oh.
Can't sing.
Well, anyway, so I had to share that anyway.
My first words as an infant to my mother were "Don't sing." Seriously,
really?
I swear that's in the baby book. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so let's talk about things for your home because I just got had a little distraction there.
Yeah.
But we all are dealing with summer challenges. In some parts of the country, it's actually getting cool, right?
I can't believe it.
It's still
we had
hot
110 for 3 days
in the
my
Los Angeles
neighborhood.
area.
Yeah.
And so many of us are still dealing with, watering challenges with our garden and with our plants. And so I found some really ingenious solutions. So let's say if you still have a summer vacation planned, or you are going to be away, or whatever is going on, wouldn't it be neat? Wouldn't it be nice if all of your containers where you have these beautiful flowers and plants and things could water on their own?
Boy, I'll say that is something else because when we go away for the summer, man, we just leave stuff to its own devices, and my sprinkler system does a great job with certain things, but you can't.
The containers,
the containers, you're done.
And the containers, there's a limit to how much water they can hold anyway.
That's it.
Especially in the heat.
You got to do the old 3 water. Let it water once, let it drain. Water twice, let it drain. Water 3 times, let it drain. Then you've effectively watered the container.
Otherwise, especially if it's a dry, hot soil.
Or if you have that coconut husk stuff on the outside in a basket, forget it.
You know what I did? I planted, in fact, the hydrangea that we got from our friends at Burpee Ball. Yeah. This is, by the way, the new hydrangea that's coming out next spring. I'll look for it maybe around February, we'll tell you. But it has 3 different colors of hydrangea blooms in one plant. A blue, a pink, and a purple.
I saw it and I said, how can this be?
So I planted it in the container and kept it in the shade because it's still, it's not going to bloom yet. It's still too early, but we wanted to keep ours looking great. I had to water it 3 times.
Yeah.
But the soil, I had this bag of soil. So heads up, when you buy soil on a hot day and it's sitting in a garden center out in the sun, it clumps almost like bricks. It isn't like a nice fluffy soil.
Sure.
It's like clumps because it's from a manufacturing facility and they've put it all together and it's almost like one big block.
Like a brick, yeah.
And normally it would break because the temperature's nice, but this was like clumps. And so I had to go in and really knead it and
it's
fluff
hot.
Hot.
I mean, imagine planting a new, tender, young plant in boiling hot soil.
I know.
Yeah.
So heads up, you got to make sure that it breaks down and then water it more. But let's say if you have some containers and you are going to go away or you just don't have the time, you want to make sure that they water on their own. We've got some ideas. Let's say, for instance, if you had wooden boxes, you can basically use plastic boxes on the base, okay? And then the water container that's going to be inside there, it's kind of like a drum. There's a small control box that's fixed and that maintains the flow of water to these wooden boxes.
Okay.
It's kind of MacGyver-ish in a way.
I like it, though.
Yeah. So the idea is, if you're looking for something, it's very productive and also very attractive. And if, watering is an issue, you have a horizontal surface that the containers will eventually sit in. And then the wood to make the boxes, and then these corrugated plastic sheets to make the false bottoms. And then these large empty plastic boxes, one for each container, and they act as a reservoir. You could use maybe a recycling box or a plastic container, and that becomes the quote-unquote control box. And then you have some zip ties and ring ties and cable ties, and you drill it together, and now you've created basically little containers of water reservoirs beneath the plants themselves.
That's kind of great, right? And then that reminds me of that thing that you can, it's almost like a bulb that you can plug into the soil.
Yes.
And it slowly drains.
They sell those,
Yeah. That's not making it, obviously, but it's that idea where you're it's using gravity to somehow water and irrigate it when you're gone. I just love it.
And so tell us what kind of drill. I guess we don't want to drill a 1 centimeter kind of a hole at the bottom of each of the plastic reservoirs, right?
Sure.
And then what you do is you would fill the soil until they sit in the water of the reservoir, and then you wick the water up the main part to the container.
Right.
Yeah.
It's almost like, siphoning gas.
Kind of.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Not that you've ever done that before.
No, me? Kidding me? Heck no.
You read about it.
Yeah.
My dad actually did that after
Well, that's
World
because
War
your
II.
dad's the original Guyver. He's Lucky Chucky, man. He was
Hard
something
times.
else.
So you could also, there's some other ways. How about an upside down hanging water system? It's basically these planters. There's a horizontal hose, and there's 4 planters and 1 water supply. And you gather the materials for the planter and the reservoir, and now the materials are basically going to, these plastic containers will now have a constant drip, drip, drip into your plant.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. And you basically connect like little hoses, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. There's little tiny hoses on there that with elbows that can take the water from this interior of this container, and then it just drips systems down through the plastic container.
That's a good description.
Yeah.
It is like you're making your own little drip system.
Yeah.
This
requires a little bit of engineering. I mean, you definitely are going to want to take a look at some information online because, this can get a little overwhelming. There's a science to it and gravity, and you've got to make sure that you have these angles the right way so that water's just not pouring constantly. Mm-hmm. It has to sort of come out time released, but you get the hang of it if you understand the concept of it.
And what about using a 5-gallon water bottle and making some holes in that, and then cutting the same bottle into 2, and then now turning that as a water reservoir and the other as a soil container, and then you could even put like a tomato cage inside that.
Yeah, that's actually a great idea. And, again, any time that you have a large container full of water above with a tiny little hole in it, so, literally you're just creating drip, 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 I think that would be an effective way to do it as well. It's a self-timer that's sort of, man-made. Right. I think it's a great idea.
You could even, instead of just using like a soda bottle, you've seen this probably online where you just take an old water bottle and you put some holes in that and you just put one of those in each of your containers.
Yeah.
What about now having one of these super duper, like those Arrowhead,
Sure.
the water cooler, those 5-gallon water cooler bottles, maybe, hopefully even with those built-in handles, that makes it a lot easier to lift and move around.
Yeah. Or you could build a little structure above to just sit the thing on. And then have a tiny little hole drilled in it, and you follow the trail of the water where it ends up dripping and make sure that your plant is directly under it. I think that could work pretty well, too.
You're right. Some of these sound a little more complex, but I love the idea of now if you were to use that water cooler bottle as not only, now it becomes the planter, too.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, so you cut it in half, right?
Right. And you could use a reciprocating saw or a hacksaw to cut, the top part, the part that tapers in where the water pours out. Cut that off so that the inside becomes a container
that becomes
to
your
hold
pot.
the plant and your pot in there. And then the water below it, which is in a separate one of these things. So there's 2 of them. You put one inside of another.
Yeah.
And then you're wicking the water back up into the plant from the bottom basin that holds the water.
It is a little tricky. It is a little tricky, but if you have some persistence, and you care about saving your plants and you just don't have the time to water, it's worth the effort, right?
Yeah, and then the other way to do it is to buy the prefab ones that are literally like bulbs that have a little stalk coming down the bottom, and you just plug that into the soil, and it's almost like those water towers you see in the small towns in the Midwest. The gravity of the shape of this thing makes the water gently drip into the bottom, doesn't pour out all at once, but it's just a slow drip system into the soil to keep it constantly moist. And as a replacement to traditional timers,
right,
where the power can go out and then you got no water whatsoever, these things work really effectively. So that's the other way to do it. And conceptually, this is what we're talking about. It's that idea of a way to water that way.
And it seems like that this would potentially, what you're talking about there would help your plant stay moist for maybe a week.
Sure.
Not much longer.
Well, if it's a constant drip, it could always be moist, and you're kind of always guaranteed that you're going to have the right kind of watering system that you need.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we'll put these on the website.
get the neighbor boy and have him show up, give him $10.
Oh, water boy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I used to love the pool boy, but now I think I love the water boy.
I think you're going water boy now, yeah?
Not quite as much as the UPS guy, though. I'm just saying.
You like the knee socks.
Anyway,
knee
Eric
socks on a
Stover,
man.
Cindy Dole. You're listening to Home Wizards.